All right, we are going to look at your 8.1 notes that you should already have given to you after the test. So we're going to be doing multiplying and dividing rational expressions, and actually this is, or should be, a review of Algebra 1 for you. So hopefully this won't feel too difficult. Okay, so the idea is we want to simplify as far down as we can, and then you can cancel things top and bottom. So we're going to start with this trinomial right here. We're going to factor that trinomial. So remember, when you factor that, you're looking for factors of 3 that will add to 4. Okay, and so those factors are going to be 3 and 1. So I'm going to rewrite that as 5x times, and then in factored form, and I can do shortcut, would just be x plus 3 and x plus 1. So there's my new numerator. My denominator, so there's nothing that I can do to this x minus 6, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And then remember that this right here is a difference of squares. And so difference of squares, remember, you write with a minus and a plus. So that's going to be x minus 3 and x plus 3. So before we do anything else, we're going to answer this question first. Under what conditions is this expression undefined? So remember that something is undefined when the denominator is 0. So we don't want our denominator to be 0. So this would be undefined when, so x cannot equal, and you always go off your original denominator. So x could not equal 6, 3, or negative 3. That's when this expression would be undefined. So that's the first part of our answer. And if you're not sure how I did that, I just am saying, okay, x minus 6, we don't want that to equal 0. We don't want x minus 3 to equal 0. And we don't want x plus 3 to equal 0. And then I'm just solving for x, okay? Okay, so then after that, now we're going to simplify where we can. So things that are the same, top and bottom, we're going to cancel out. So this x plus 3 and this x plus 3 is going to cancel out. And remember, binomials are married, so I can't cancel, like for example, I can't cancel this x right here with this x right here because, again, this is married with this x minus 6. So if there's nothing else left to cancel, then I'm just going to write my final answer in simplified form. So I have 5x times the quantity x plus 1 over the quantity x minus 6 times the quantity x minus 3. And there is my answer in simplified form. Okay? All right, now let's see if I can, oh, I just lost it. Nope. Let's see. I'm trying to take a screenshot of this, so sorry, people, that you're just sitting there waiting for me. Nope. I don't know. Okay, moving on. So let's go down to this example here. Okay, pull this back up. So again, we're going to, let me erase all that. We're going to identify under what conditions the expression is undefined, and this one is already in factored form, so we can just start off from the get-go and say we don't want z to equal 1, negative 5, or 2. So that's when we know this will be undefined. And now we're going to simplify what we can on the numerator. So we're going to take this and we're going to factor it. So we're looking for factors of negative 8 that add to positive 2. And so that's going to be a positive 4 and a negative 2. So my new numerator will be, I have 2z times the quantity z plus 5 over, and now I'm going to factor this. So I have z plus 4 times z minus 2. And then that's all over my denominator. The quantity z minus 1 times the quantity z plus 5 times the quantity z minus 2. And now we're going to cancel things that are the same, top and bottom. And again, I'm looking for full binomials to cancel. Once I'm done canceling, I'm going to write my answer in simplest form. So 2 times the quantity z plus 4 over the quantity z minus 1. And you don't have to have parentheses on the bottom. You can write it like this if you want. And there's my answer. So here's my answer, and here's my undefined portion. Okay, moving on. All right, the next question is just a multiple choice. For what values would this be undefined? And so to figure this out, again, we're looking at our denominator, but I need to look at this in factored form. So I'm looking for factors of positive 8 that add to positive 6. So that's going to be positive 4 and positive 2. So if I factored this, this would be x plus 4 times the quantity x plus 2, and then I have this 4x down here. So this matters right here because if I have this 4x right here, this is saying, okay, 4x can't equal 0, and then x plus 4 can't equal 0, and x plus 2 can't equal 0. So I know that x, we don't want x to be negative 4 or negative 2, but what else can x not equal? Well, if I divide it by 4, x also cannot equal 0. So the answer that I want here is C. All right, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to simplify, and this says right here, it says simplify using -1. And so you're going to see how there are times that we factor and things almost match, but they're just maybe off by their signs, and so we can take out a negative. So let's start with this binomial up here. If you notice this binomial, they have a w in common, so I'm going to take that w out, and I'm left with 4w minus 3y, and then I just have this w plus y here. Okay, so I'm going to mark that out, so that's gone. Okay, and if you look on bottom here, there's nothing I can take out of this binomial. They don't have anything in common, and this one doesn't have anything in common. So now I'm looking to cancel and to simplify. If you notice here, these are really close to being the same. The only thing that is off are the signs. So if my 4w were negative and my 3y were positive here on the bottom, then this would cancel. So what that means is these would cancel if I took out a -1 from right here. So if I took out a -1, this would be a -4w and a positive 3y, which is what I have right down here, right? This is a positive 3y right here, and then I have a -4w right here. And so those will cancel. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those out. So I'm left with this -1 right here. And then I have my w and my w plus y on top. And then on bottom I have this 5w plus y. So I'm going to multiply my -1 and my w together and just make it -w times the quantity w plus y over 5w plus y. And that would be my answer in simplest form. If you can tell that these are going to match minus that their signs are wrong, you don't have to show this part where you took out the -1. You can just mark them out and write a -1 so that way we know we need to pull out a negative for it to work. Okay, so let's look here. So let's start with our numerator. If you notice the numerator in common, they have an a and a b. So we're going to take out an a and a b from both of those terms. So I'm left with a b minus a 5. B minus 5 there, okay? And then I'm going to mark this out because that's done. All right, so we are close to these matching. So I see a minus sign here and here. And so what's wrong is my b's and my 5's there have different signs. So all I have to do is I'm going to cancel them, and I'm going to pull out that negative so that they would match. So I'm going to put that negative in front of that AB, and that's going to go on top over 5 plus B on the bottom. And there's my answer in simplest form. All right, last page. And we're just looking at multiplying and dividing rational expressions. Basically, all this is saying up here is just making sure you remember when you multiply when you multiply, you're going to multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. And then remember with division, when you divide by fractions, it's keep the first one as is, change division to multiplication, and then flip your second fraction. So keep, change, flip is the verbiage I think you have used in the past. All right, so let's start with A. So this is just multiplication on A. And so what I'm going to start doing is, remember again, the goal is to cancel things top and bottom. And I can cancel things top and bottom regardless of if they're directly over one another. So I'm going to start with my coefficient. So I know that a 5 goes into itself once and into 15 3 times. And I know that 6 and 8 can be reduced by a 2. So I'm going to make that 6, a 3, and I'm going to make that 8 a 4. Okay, now I'm going to start looking at my variables here. So notice I have a D on the bottom and I have 2 D's on the top. So if I cancel one of them out, I'm just left with 1 up there on the top. And it doesn't look like I have anything else that I can cancel. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply across the top. So I'm going to multiply my coefficients and I'm going to get a 9. And then I'm going to multiply my C's, and remember you keep your base the same, add your exponents, and then I have that D up there as well. And then on the bottom, I'm going to multiply and get a 4 and an A. And before you circle that answer, you can just double check and make sure that there isn't anything the same, top and bottom, that you could cancel. And if there is not, then you are finished and you can simplify. Okay, so for B, if you notice here, we are dividing. So I'm just going to right away, I'm going to rewrite this as keep it. So I'm going to leave my first fraction the same. And then I'm going to change my division to multiplication. And then I'm going to flip this fraction. And I think if you try to start simplifying before you flip it, you can start to get confused. Okay, and then I'm going to look at coefficients first. So I'm going to look at this 7 and 35. I know that 7 can go into itself once and into 35 5 times. And I know that 18 and 12 can also be reduced by a 6. Goes in there 3 times and in there 2 times. Okay, and now I'm going to start looking at my variables. So I see an A top and bottom, and these are both an A squared, so those can just go away. I see an X to the first on top right here, and there's 2 of them down here on the bottom, so if I cancel out 1, I'm just left with 1. I also see some B's here. I see 1 B on top, 2 on bottom, so if I cancel 1 out, I'm left with 1. And then lastly, I have these Y's. I have 1 down here, 3 up here, so if I cancel 1 out, I have 2 left. And once I've simplified all the way down, now I'm going to multiply across the top, and I'm going to get a 15. Then I have that Y squared. And then I'm going to multiply across the bottom, multiply my coefficients first, which is a 2, and then I have a B left and an X left. And again, I'm going to check and make sure there's nothing I can cancel or simplify, and if not, I am done. Okay, so now I want you to pause this video and do these next 2 on your own, and I'm going to write the answers here so that you can see if you did them correctly or not. So here are the answers to the last 2. Okay, so there are those answers to those two problems. If you didn't get those, you might go back and just double check. Or, of course, you're welcome to ask me if you have any questions about that. Okay, we have one more page left here to look at. So let's look at this last page. So now we're going to do the same idea, only we're going to add some polynomials instead of just monomials, top and bottom. Okay, so again, when you have a trinomial, you're wanting to factor. So we're looking for factors of negative 16 that add to negative 6. Factors of negative 16 that add to negative 6, and that's going to be a negative 8 and a positive 2. So I'm going to rewrite that. I'm going to do this in red. In factored form, this would be x minus 8 and x plus 2. And now I'm going to go to this denominator. So on this denominator, I'm looking for factors of 64 that add to negative 16, and that's going to be a negative 8 and a negative 8. So my denominator in factored form would be x minus 8 times x minus 8. And then I have times this binomial. There's nothing in common or GCF that I can pull out, so I'm just going to leave it as is, over, and now I'm going to look at this trinomial, and I'm looking for factors of positive 6 that add to positive 5, and that's going to be a positive 3 and a positive 2. So in factored form, that's x plus 3 times x plus 2. Once I've done that, now I'm going to start canceling things that are the same, top and bottom. So I'm going to cancel this, whoops, I forgot that parentheses. So I'm going to cancel this x minus 8 with this x minus 8. This x minus 8 with this one, and then x plus 2 with this x plus 2. So left on top, I have a 1, and on bottom, I have an x plus 3. And there is my final answer. Okay, for part B, again, I'm going to rewrite this first. Since this is division, I'm going to keep the first fraction as is. And I'm going to change division to multiplication, and then I'm going to flip it. Okay, and now I'm going to just go one at a time. So I'm going to start with this trinomial on top. And we're looking for factors of 20 that add to negative 9. And that's going to be negative 5 and negative 4. So in factored form, this is x minus 5 and x minus 4. So I'm going to get rid of that. On the bottom here, I'm looking for factors of positive 21 that add to positive 10. That's a positive 7 and a positive 3. So in factored form, that's x plus 7 and x plus 3. And then I'm going to go over here to this binomial that does have a GCF of 6. So I'm going to pull out a 6, which would leave me with x plus 7. And then I'm going to mark that out. And then lastly, I'm going to look at this trinomial. So I'm looking for factors of negative 12 that add to negative 1. And that's a negative 4 and a positive 3. So I have x minus 4 and x plus 3. And then I'm going to mark that out. And then after I do that, after I've simplified everything, I'm going to start canceling things top and bottom. So x plus 7 and x plus 7 can cancel. X minus 4 and x minus 4 can cancel. And I think I've canceled everything out. I lost something here. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to circle the things that are left so I don't miss anything. So on top, I have 6 times the quantity x minus 5. And on bottom, I have x plus 3 times x plus 3, which I'm going to write as x plus 3 squared. And there's my answer. Oops. Okay, last thing is the exact same idea, dividing fractions. It's just written a little bit differently. So this bar means division, so the idea is the same. I'm still going to keep the top one as is, change division to multiplication, and then I'm going to flip that bottom fraction to look like this. And then once I've done that, I'm going to start simplifying. So there's nothing I can take out of that binomial there. And then this binomial here, in case you're thinking you can factor that, that is not a difference of squares because that's an addition sign, and we don't have a sum of squares. There isn't such a thing. So there's no simplifying that I can do there, but I can cancel out my 4's. And so I'm left with, on top, a plus b over a squared plus b squared. Okay, last one. So again, I'm going to rewrite first. I'm going to keep the top fraction as is. I'm going to change division to multiplication, and then I'm going to flip my bottom fraction. Okay, and then I'm going to start simplifying. So I'm going to start with this numerator. This is a difference of squares, so I can write that as x minus y and x plus y, and then I can get rid of that. This denominator also is a difference of squares. It would be y minus 7 and y plus 7, and mark that out. And the rest of these, so this binomial, there's no GCF, and this binomial, there is no GCF. So now I'm going to start marking things out. So notice this y plus 7 and y plus 7 will cancel. And then I want you to notice here, these are so close. What's the issue? The issue is their signs are opposites. So what can we do? We can cancel them out as long as we take out that -1. Okay, so I would have left, I have this -1 times x plus y, so this is what I have left on top, and then on the bottom I have this y minus 7. And you could write it like that, or if you wanted to, on top you could take that -1 through and say -x minus y over y minus 7. Either answer would be accurate, and you can do it either way. All right, that is going to conclude our notes. Here is your homework assignment. Just as a reminder, you're going to take a Canvas quiz over this section, and that's going to be your assignment that will be due when you come back to class. And then we're going to work on this assignment right here, all of this stuff, in class when you come back next time. So you'll get about half the time, and then we'll do the 8.2 notes. So hopefully this made sense. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks. Oh, how do I get out of here? No, nope. Okay, let's see.